Hello and good morning. Welcome to the Cornerstone Forum. I am Stephanie Reed, Senior Director of Culture and Communications within University Finance and Administration. Can you advance to the next slide? Thanks. So before we begin, we are recording today's session. All attendees have been placed on mute. If we will take time throughout the meeting to address questions, and we will hold time at the end of the meeting for Q&A. So if you have any questions for the presenters, please use the Q&A function along the panel at the bottom of your screen. And so we can begin. I'll introduce Mike Gower, Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and University Treasurer. Mike.
Good morning, everyone. It's glad to have you for this inaugural Cornerstone Forum. We will be producing these regularly, and I hope they will be helpful to you in understanding what's going on within the university's major systems projects. Next, please. I'd like to now have Michelle Noren introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. Michelle Noren. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for Rutgers and co-executive sponsor with Mike on the Cornerstone initiatives. So I'm really glad to have our session today and to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Fahey. I'm the Associate Vice President, Project Management Office Executive, and the Cornerstone Project Executive. Thank you all for joining.
And finally, everyone, I am Ellen Law. I am the Associate Vice President for Enterprise Application Services in the Office of Information Technology.
So let me give you a little bit of a background for those of you who weren't here at the beginning, which is many people, and also as a reminder for folks who have been around, believe it or not, within less than 2 months, we will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the merger with most of the units from University of Medicine and Dentistry into the new Rutgers University, a combined entity. This was and is still the largest combination, the largest merger in higher education. I think it will likely stand as a record for a good while, given that these were two significant research universities that were combining. But that merger by itself necessitated a look at how we were running the back office systems, how we were running the enterprise resource planning platforms, how we were running payroll, how we were running research administration, how we would be running student information systems. As you might imagine, as we combined the entities on July 1 of 2013, we had 2 of everything. And not only did we have 2 of everything, but each of those systems were being managed in different ways, with different organizational structures, with different coding, with different assumptions, with different processes. So launching in, we started the initiative in actually 2014 to plan for an entity-wide revamping of these systems and really to affect the real merger of the university, and that was to get all the units, whether they came from old Rutgers or old UMD&J, to work in similar ways. 2016 was when we had our first rollout, and that was particularly challenging. It not only was the combination of financial and payroll information, procurement and expense management information from 2 different entities, but it was to get them into a single language. Generally speaking, referred to as the chart of accounts, but get to a single language and set of processes in terms of how to work together and how to work going forward. This was a very big deal. Again, not something that had been done to this scale in higher education before. And in addition, we were adopting a strategy around cloud operations for our major information systems. I noted that we had 2 of everything prior to the merger and for the first couple of years. Not only did we have 2 of every system, neither set of systems were in particularly good shape. They were not particularly updated. They were highly customized. We were looking instead for a strategy that would allow us to keep current, to minimize customizations, which have plagued higher education systems forever, and to move forward with building on newer technologies. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a feel for the scope. This is actually a slide that goes back quite a number of years when we were first putting this program together. It gives you a feel for the scope of work that was necessary. To create the One Rutgers, we needed to work in areas for research administration. We needed to revamp the budget preparation system. And at the same time, we were moving to responsibility center management budget tool. I mentioned before that we had to reset the chart of accounts to be a combined One Rutgers view of things and how those things would work, trying to make improvements along the way. In the procurement area, UMD&J had been using the Jagger, then it was called SciQuest procurement tool, and we decided to adopt that for the entire university. Student enrollment and account management is the area that we still have work to do. We're still running off of 2 systems there, and that is work to be done in the next several years. That will be mentioned along the way. And then last but not least, in the human resources payroll, we had a major initiative at the same time we brought forward the new financial system to move all the legacy UMD&J employees to the single Rutgers PeopleSoft HR payroll system. That was done in October of 2016. It was done successfully. It is now the focus of a major upgrade that we discussed later in this forum. Next, please. And this just gives you a little picture of the time frame that's taken to do this. As I mentioned, we came live in 2016 with Oracle Financials Cloud, but we in fact started the work in 2014. And then note here where enterprise performance management is when the budget system and other elements came into play, working on the chart of accounts continuously through this. As part of student experience improvement initiative, initiated student one-stop shops at each of the campuses. OneSource came into play in 2019, along with FundDriver, which supports our endowment management. 2020 was the beginning of our constituent resource management system, otherwise known as the Salesforce system, to be used for Scarlet Journey, at this time around enrollment management. 2021, student financial planning, and in the last year, the travel portal, the online booking tool for all things travel. Next. Now I'd like to turn over to Michelle.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I think what's interesting to observe about what Mike just described and the timeline there is a few things. First of all, these are very intense and complicated, long processes to replace our systems. Doesn't matter what system you're going to, it doesn't matter who made the system. That process of moving from one system to another is intense. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of involvement from all of us, our community, IT, operations, project management. And so when we progress through those initiatives, there are a lot of things that we get right and a lot of things that we observe and watch for to make improvements around. And so every stop along that timeline that you saw there, when we get through a major milestone implementation or improvement, like the financial system, we always have an opportunity or take the opportunity to sort of look back and say, okay, we got through that. We invariably hit some snags along the way. That just comes with implementation processes like this. But we look back and we observe that and we learn from that, and we take what we learned and we apply it to the next process. And so each one of these, we've been able to learn some things, make improvements, so that the next time we implement a system, hopefully we'll have fewer issues to deal with. We'll never get to zero, never make that promise. We'll never get to zero, but we try to make that experience a little bit better the next go around based on what we've learned. And so these are some of the things that we've learned along the way in these initiatives. In some cases, we observed that we needed more time for things like getting the community ready for the system, for optimizing the system, more testing, more opportunities to make sure that the data we're porting in is where we need it to be. And so time is always, it can sometimes or most of the time be something that we would add or like to add if we have the luxury to do it, so that we give ourselves more opportunity to get ready for the system. The other thing we've learned along the way here is the need for greater collaboration and broader engagement. I know I hear this a lot from folks when I'm out there collecting feedback about units wanting to be more involved, wanting to be informed. We want to make sure that the areas of our community that are impacted by these systems have an opportunity to weigh in up front to help us shape the system or help us get ready for the system, know about it along the way. And then, of course, when we go live on a new system, are there to understand what those dynamics are. That's probably one of the areas that every time we go through one, we try to loop back around and add more places for people to have voices. So we recognize that. That's absolutely something that we observe, watch for along the way in all of these initiatives. The other thing that I think is important here is we simply cannot underestimate the impact of change. That change quotient is critical. We always strive to help our community, help all of us get ready for the new system and whatever form that needs to look like. If you're in an area that's an operational area that uses your system every day to do your work, we're going to try to spend a lot of time with you to make sure you have what you need to know to learn the new system. That takes a lot of time, a lot of engagement. It's hard. It's hard to keep a foot in both camps, to keep things running on the old system. And I'm doing my work on my old system and I got to get ready for the new system. And so we're constantly trying to figure out how to help folks with that balance. But we cannot underestimate that. As much as we have training and we get folks ready and we train and practice, there's still that day when we turn on the new system and I come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I do this again? So we've tried to build in components to the process where we've got people preparation time, both pre and post go live, but we have to recognize that we can't underestimate that. And we are in every one of these continually focusing on people and process. The system is one thing, but the processes that we have that wrap around those systems require changes. And sometimes we have to learn how to do things differently based on what we're getting from the system. And so in each of these, we continually focus on that people and process component. So those are global lessons learned. You know, we in the higher ed community, we're really good at sharing. And so we're always constantly learning from other institutions and their processes and what we've experienced or what they've experienced, so that we can incorporate that more globally into the implementation cycles like this. These are lessons that are common throughout implementation processes. Next slide. Very specifically, though, I want to zero in a little bit on this last couple of years. You heard Mike talk about the fact that we're now in a new financial system. We've got, some from peripheral areas that we're focusing on now, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. But very specifically, we've been focusing on, in this last couple of years, sort of two major areas that are greatly complicated. One is the beginning of, both of them are actually related to the student process, but we've been focusing on implementing the Salesforce for recruitment, that's the Scarlet Journey, and a tool related to financial aid planning. We focused on implementing those two major modules or functions in the last couple of years. Really, we hit some pretty rough patches. Those are big old complicated components that we observed a lot in terms of how those progressed and what we needed to think about going forward. So last fall, coming out of the go live for our new financial aid system and leading into the second cycle of our student recruitment and application system, the executive team, which are the folks that you're hearing from today, took us a little bit of a pause to decide, how do we need to move forward here? Based on kind of what we've observed, we probably need to think about reprioritizing what we do going forward, particularly for this calendar year. And so we've calibrated a little bit, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But we needed to think about the resource constraints that all of us are grappling with. That was one of the drivers for us rethinking and reprioritizing. We had a lot of change. I mean, that change push, and I talked about that in the last slide. We can't underestimate that. We have a lot of change across all of these systems. And we were thinking at that time, maybe it's a little bit too much. We're starting to hear some feedback from the community, change. Can we just take a breath here? And so that was one of the considerations for us rethinking a bit. We feel that we need a little bit more time to stabilize out of these new systems, to just give our folks some time to get used to the systems, get used to the new processes, keep working through the improvements and the issues that are typical in go lives like this. So that's a major consideration for us, just to pause a little bit on our timelines, allow folks to get comfortable, make sure we get through our second cycles a little bit more smoothly, for the sake of the students, for the sake of our operational areas. And so we've calibrated sort of the speed of things in those areas to give ourselves a little bit more time to stabilize and get comfortable with the new pieces. And so we've slowed some things down in certain areas, and we've adjusted the timelines accordingly. If we hadn't done that, we would be moving on through to the next major components of the student system in a timeline that would have started looking at the other modules this year. And so we decided to sort of pause that, and I'll show you the timeline in just a minute. But these are the major considerations for us that sort of led us to thinking about how we would reprioritize going forward. And so let's go to the next slide, and I'll show you what that looks like more specifically. We have sort of three major pillars here that you heard Mike talk about. One of them is around our Salesforce CRM implementation. Right now, for that leg, we are focusing on these key areas that you see here. One is around the student recruitment piece in two ways. One is to stabilize on the new application interface that we implemented 2 years ago. And we're working through the second cycle of that right now to stabilize on that. And the other area is to move ourselves institutionally into what's known as the Common App. This is a national program where students can go in and fill out an application and apply it to multiple schools. And so we decided that we needed to be part of that as an institution. So our goal is to be live on that by August of this year. You'll hear details in a minute from John and Ellen, but that's the other area that we're going to focus on. So stabilize on what we have right now for the student application, and then get ourselves ready for the Common App. Very tight timeline. We have to be very focused and very intentional about getting us to the place where we can leverage that next year, which will be an advantage for us in attracting more students. So we're going to focus on those two areas for students. We will continue our work in around with our foundation and alumni relations, where we are rolling out the CRM tools for those operations around fundraising. And then shortly after that, we will move into expanding it into athletics. So those will be the areas that we focus on for CRM. For student experience, I mentioned this a little bit already. We are focusing on stabilizing around the financial planning tools, where we can get comfortable, make sure we're again, smoothing out that process, addressing all the issues, making critical improvements. That is the priority right now. Very soon after that, once we kind of get stabilized, we will pick the rest of those steps up and think about the timing of what comes next. Because in the end, we still need to replace the two student systems that we have right now that you heard Mike talk about. We still have to get to a single system. So we will take a look at that later in this calendar year to decide, okay, now what comes next and how do we keep moving on that front. But for now, we're going to focus on financial planning. And then if you go to the third ish bubble, we're going to continue some work in our procurement front, around travel expense and lease administration. We've got some work going on there. Those will continue. And then lastly, and maybe as equally big, we are focusing on implementing a new HR payroll system. Now, this is significant and an area of intentional priority, because we have to get off the system that we're on now and get into a new system by January of 2025. The licensing maintenance will end of life in December of 24. And so we have to be on a new system. So you'll hear details, but our focus here is to get from our current system into a new system so that in January of 25, we're running payroll in our new system, and we're stable and we have all the maintenance that we need for the new system. So this is it's a good amount of work. It's a reasonable time frame. We have roughly about 2 years when we started this process to get from one system to the other. That is a workable time frame, but we have to be very focused, very intentional, and we need a lot of involvement. So you'll hear more about that. But this is the other major area of priority for us, is to get through this that particular system implementation. Next slide, please. And for those of you who like to see timelines, this is how it all fits together here. You can see the sort of the major phases across from July of 22 to October of 25, and how each of these work streams lays out across that timeline. And you'll see it here. You'll see HR, we've got phases in there, but you see HR where it's actually, we already started this one. So it's now till December of 24. And then we move into the second phase. We've got the financial planning pieces here where you'll see it right here. We're focusing on financial planning for this calendar year. And then we'll move into the rest of the student system. We've got our CRM. So this just shows you how it all lays out and how much is parallel, what the steps are for each of these going forward. But it's all reflective of what will be occurring in these next 2 calendar years as we keep moving forward with the implementation of these systems. Next slide, and I believe I'm going to be handing off to John here to talk about the details of each of these work streams.
Thank you, Michelle, and good morning again, everyone. So as Michelle stated, we did slow down several projects within the portfolio to allow more time and more focus on several of our larger key initiatives. However, she did mention 2 projects that are going to continue on to completion. I'd like to talk about those very quickly before we get into the major projects. The first one is our lease administration system. This is our phase 2 implementation. As Mike mentioned when he spoke about the history of the program, the first phase of this project was launched in July of 2021. This second phase is focused on enhanced reporting and analytics, as well as building in compliance with the new GASB 96, GASB being the Government Accounting Standards Board. There's a new release becoming effective July 1 of this year around software leasing. So we're building the compliance for that new release into the system as well. That program is in progress and will continue and is scheduled to be completed by June of this year. The second program is a new travel expense management system. This program will be built in a new platform using SAP Concur as our platform. This will be a full travel expense management system. It will be integrated with the direct travel booking portal that Mike just mentioned earlier. It will also be fully integrated with our Oracle financials. We are also tying this to the banks, Bank of America in particular, where all travel-related expenses that go on purchasing cards will receive transmittals directly from the bank and feed them directly into the SAP system as well. So this program is just underway. We're finalizing requirements. We have representatives and stakeholders from across the university working with us. We're right now in the middle of a series of focus groups, talking about user experience and getting the input and feedback from all the folks that will be involved in this, and we're beginning the implementation. This program is expected to be completed by January of 24. We are just beginning the implementation, so we'll have more firm dates on releases and more information to come on this one. Next slide, please. So now we want to move into our major initiatives, and Ellen and I will be providing you updates on all these projects. So first, we want to talk about the HR Payroll Transformation Initiative. This is a multi-year, multi-phase initiative where we're looking to improve, modernize, and transform the university's human resources and payroll processes and services. It's also another step in our Cornerstone program to create a single identity and culture, to standardize practices, and improve collaboration across the university. Our vision and guiding principles for this program was established through a series of working sessions with our executive committee. Our vision for this program is to advance excellence and empower the Rutgers University community to reach its fullest potential by delivering strategic, people-centric services. To support that vision, we've also established 6 guiding principles that will help guide us through this program and achieve that vision. First one is people-focused. We want to develop services, policies, and a support structure for the community that promotes well-being and creates a positive experience. Second one is being engaged. We want to communicate proactively and consistently across the Rutgers University community by partnering with our institutional colleagues to build awareness and solicit and incorporate feedback. Third is strategic. We want to enable HR and payroll to serve as strategic partners by investing in workforce skills development and streamlining automating critical tasks in order to strengthen our expertise and build capacity to be a more nimble workforce that embraces change and seeks out opportunities for growth and improvement in support of the university's mission. And we want to be consistent. We want to establish consistent policies, processes, practices, and data definitions to ensure accuracy and accountability. Fifth, become technology enabled. We want to adopt human resources and payroll technology solutions that are simple and provide a seamless experience across the Rutgers University community. And finally, is data informed and accessible. We want to create a culture of data informed decision making by providing timely access to a single reliable source of information, enabling self-service functionality, and providing support to facilitate adoption. Major component of this program will be the full implementation of our Oracle Human Capital Management Cloud system. And as Mike mentioned, moving off of our current PeopleSoft system. But in order to do that and be successful and further achieve our vision, we will undergo extensive business process review and re-engineering efforts in partnership and collaboration with stakeholders from across the university, representing all 4 chancellor units, as well as all central administration offices. So as Michelle stated, this program is underway. So where are we now? PMO office is working closely with Ellen's enterprise applications team, our human resources partners, and our implementation partner, Sierra Cedar. And right now we are deep into the first portion of our business process review, which is focused on system and technical requirements. Following that technical review, we will begin the functional business process reviews. So in collaboration with stakeholders across the university, we will spend the next 9 months completing a full review and documenting all current state functional and operational processes. We will then get everyone back together and work together to identify gaps in those processes, find opportunities for improvements, and move toward creating more standardized, streamlined, and effective processes that, while technology enabled, are more people-centric and will afford our teams the time to be more strategic and deliver more value. We'll also be working with these teams to perform multiple rounds of extensive testing of the new systems and processes as we progress through our development. We've established our governance committees. We have advisory council, steering committee, and executive committee. We've already held kickoff meetings with all those groups. Ellen and I are currently meeting with leadership teams across the university to review the program plans, schedules, and requested time commitments, so they can help us identify and engage resources that we need to work with the project teams that can provide us with the expertise, the knowledge, and the input we need to ensure a successful outcome of this program. First phase of this initiative will go live in January of 2025, as Michelle mentioned, with a key focus on payroll and the supporting core human resource elements. As I stated earlier, this will be a multi-phase program. So let's take a look at what those phases include. Next slide, please. So the first phase of our program, scheduled to go live in January 25. The critical path, as Michelle mentioned, is payroll. But in order to be successful with moving to a new payroll system, we also need to be ready with all of our core human capital management modules, strategic workforce planning, benefits, compensation, faculty life cycle, absence management, and time and labor. They will all be delivered as part of phase 1 in January of 2025. Following that, we will move to phase 2. Phase 2 will include recruiting, performance management, talent management, succession planning, career development, and learning. As we go through phase 1 and phase 2, we will also be looking to identify the scope for what we believe will be a phase 3. Next box, please. So phase 3 is not yet defined. However, as we go through this, there will be other elements, especially as we go through the process re-engineering, that we will identify things that we want built into the new system. They will become part of a phase 3. So again, this will be a multi-phase, multi-year program. Next slide, please. A separate project, but also part now of the HR payroll transformation, is our Chart of Accounts Phase 2 project. In July of 2018, as mentioned when Mike talked about the history, we completed the first phase of our Chart of Accounts optimization. However, as we continue to work in a new Oracle financial system, we have identified more areas that can be further optimized that will better serve the needs of our community. We are also now looking to better align the Chart of Accounts with the new HCM system. This will enable us to create more consistent interaction and integration between the programs, as well as provide enhanced and more efficient reporting and analytics, which will lead us to more accurate financial management and more informed decision-making. This project is in progress. We're working with stakeholders from all 4 chancellor units, as well as all central administration offices from across the university. This project is now very closely aligned with the HR payroll initiative, and all upcoming releases will be coordinated with that program. At this time, release dates are under review and will be announced shortly. We do have, and you'll see later in the deck, we included some references to some of our websites. And we're going to talk more about that later, but there'll be more information released on those. Before we move on from this point, I would like to just take a pause, see if there's any questions that have come in on anything you've heard so far. Stephanie, do we have any questions?
We do, John. You just answered one question about the alignment of the Chart of Accounts Phase 2 project with the HR Payroll Transformation Initiative. But our next question is, what consideration about unit level workforce capacity is made for system readiness, preparedness, and involvement on project related work?
So one of the items I just mentioned, I'll speak specifically about the HR Payroll Implementation Initiative, where we're working with the units and the campuses to identify resources now. What the project team has done is we prepared a resource plan for the implementation of that project. So speaking about the actual project itself, where we've actually broken down week by week for the next 9 months, the amount of hours that we need from resources, the specific types of resources we need, and how we'd like to engage them and get them involved in the project. We are also working with all the leadership teams across the university to establish communications and awareness programs. So we know even the folks that are involved in the project, there are many more users impacted by what we're doing. We want to engage them and keep them engaged throughout the process. So we will be developing multiple ways of communicating with them and getting them involved in the program. So everyone has a chance to see what's going on, have a full awareness, keep updated, and provide input. As far as readiness, we will be performing multiple rounds of testing and training, and we will be working through the leadership across the university to make sure all the appropriate folks in their units are involved in those processes.
Great, thank you. Still related to the HR Payroll Transformation Initiative, will effort compensation certification be a part of the phase 1 work or any of the work with the project?
So we are establishing a dedicated work stream within the HR Payroll Transformation Initiative around research administration. One of the key areas is effort certification. So I will tell you right now, it is our goal to move effort certification away from the third-party system that is currently being used and move that into the new HCM system with a more streamlined, more efficient, and more effective process for all of our PIs and research administrators. We are working on that now. We're going through the requirements. We have not 100% confirmed that yet, but I will tell you that in all likelihood, effort certification will move into the new HCM system. Whether that's part of phase 1 and phase 2 will be determined once we finalize the requirements gathering.
So regarding the content that we have on slide 16, if we could just go back one slide, can you help us understand the faculty life cycle focus and where faculty and staff fit into this plan?
So as we're talking about payroll, this obviously impacts everyone. The faculty life cycle portion of phase 1 is specific to the elements that we need to support the payroll functions for faculty. There will be a separate focus for faculty around faculty information system, including tenure tracking and all other faculty related items. That has not yet been defined as to which phase that will fall into, likely phase 2, but we're still working on that. We are also working with the Office of Academic Affairs in the President's office to work with us to establish a faculty advisory council so we can hear directly from faculty members because this is not just about staff and staff users, this is about impacting everyone. So there will be specific work streams and follow-up specific to faculty, but that first piece is all the core elements that we need to make sure that the payroll for faculty is correct.
I'll ask just one more question before moving on. Will the Chart of Accounts initiative include opportunities for operational areas to have better control over expenses? Currently, the units are unable to track the general ledger specific projects, which is why they do not like to use the general ledger.
Yes, we are working with all the units now. So that program has multiple work streams. For those of you familiar with the Chart of Accounts, there are 10 segments, 8 of them are actively used. There is a work stream dedicated and focused on every segment, as well as holistically looking at how we track programs, how we track special projects, what projects are tracked in PPM versus the general ledger. So all those items are under review. We are collecting feedback now to best determine how to satisfy those needs for all the units across all chancellor units and administrative units, and how to best optimize the chart and work with you all on better ways to use the chart and different ways to use the chart to better track those. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. If there's nothing else, thank you all for those questions. We will pause again for more questions later, but now I'd like to turn it over to Ellen Law, who's going to discuss our Scarlet Journey, CRM, and student experience programs. Ellen?
Thanks, John. I'm going to talk about the Cornerstone initiatives associated with the student side. In addition to the PMO, which is led by John, and OIT, which is where I sit, University Enrollment Services, led by Jean McDonald Rash, has a key role along with all of our chancellor units in the student projects. All right, we'll start with Scarlet Journey. Scarlet Journey is our enterprise Salesforce implementation, which allows us to manage relationships and interactions with a wide variety of our constituents. As Michelle mentioned, we began the Scarlet Journey project with a focus on enrollment management, particularly the application cycle, prospect, applicant, and mid. For our first application cycle, which was 22-23, we created the Rutgers admissions application within Salesforce, replacing our old process. We accepted over 149,000 undergraduate and some graduate applications, reviewed them, and provided status for the applicants. During our implementation, we also integrated the system with a few tools to improve the full cycle experience. Quantiva for event scheduling, Conga as our form builder, which we used for admit letters, and the Marketing Cloud, which is another Salesforce module used to assist with campaigns and emails. Although enrollment management was our main focus, during implementation, we also rolled University Communications and Marketing, the Rutgers Business School, and a few other departments into the system to leverage the Marketing Cloud offering. We recently completed our second application cycle for 23-24 on Scarlet Journey, during which we accepted over 160,000 applications. Where are we now? We're working closely with our chancellor units, continuing to enhance the system's features and functionality, as well as reporting and analytic capabilities in support of the enrollment management. Next slide, please. We will continue to integrate the data from the remaining professional schools, the dental, the medical, law, and the business schools into Scarlet Journey from their individual application systems. We have also begun working with Foundation to bring them into the Scarlet Journey in a phased approach. They are up and running our Marketing Cloud and will continue enhancements in support of the upcoming major fundraising campaign. Over time, the system will be expanded to support donor management, gift processing, and grateful patient. Integrating Salesforce with AffiniQuest, which is a software package geared toward Foundation functionality, is also a main focus. This will be used to manage donor prospects. In addition, we are standing up Commerce Cloud, which is another Salesforce module, to replace the current giving platform. Looking ahead, we will begin to engage athletics to assess their needs and requirements as we continue to evolve our Scarlet Journey roadmap. Next slide, please. As Michelle mentioned, for years, the university has talked about jumping onto the Common App. It looks like we're finally there, and Rutgers will be an option on the application starting August 2023 for first-year undergraduate applicants. University Enrollment Services, PMO, and OIT have been working very closely with the enrollment management teams across all campuses on the requirements and design of the system, as well as discussing the impact of additional applications on their units. As we go live, the Common App data will be integrated with the Scarlet Journey and be used to review and decision applications. Next slide, please. The Student Experience Improvement Initiative has been around for several years, as Michelle had mentioned, with the goal of improving the student experience. This includes service levels, business processes, and technology. The launch of the one-stop shops was a result of this effort, as well as some reorganization of services across units. Mike had mentioned Rutgers is currently running 2 separate student systems, which are very complex, highly customized, and getting harder and harder to support. We also deal with the complexity of reporting on students across the 2 systems. A few years ago, with representation from all campuses, the university went through an RFP process to find a new student system. Oracle Student was the clear winner of the RFP. Oracle Student is comprised of 2 pieces: Student Financial Planning, or SFP, which is the financial aid piece, which Michelle had talked about, and Student Management Cloud, which is the rest of the functionality. In an effort to tighten our compliance posture on the financial aid front, the decision was made to implement Student Financial Planning, integrating with Banner and the SRDB. 2021 was our first year of utilizing SFP for packaging and dispersing to students. Given the intricacies and complexities of Rutgers' data and processes, trying to learn the new system, as well as some system hiccups, the first year proved very challenging for students and staff. We could not have gotten through the process without the ongoing collaboration from all campuses and our partnership with Oracle. This year, although still challenging, it was definitely better than last year, and we now see the system and processes beginning to stabilize. As Mike Gower often mentions, with any new system, you should expect 2 years to work through the kinks. He seems to be right on target. Our focus for the next year, as Michelle had mentioned, will be continuing to stabilize the system, as well as enhancing our reporting and analytics capabilities. What's next? As we look to implement the Student Management Cloud, replacing Banner and the SRDB, a review and standardization of business processes across the university will be critical. This is similar to what we are doing on the HR payroll side, as John had mentioned. This review will be a collaboration among all chancellor units, central units, and schools to get it right prior to our implementation. Okay, next comes Stephanie. Or John. Okay, John, I hand it to John.
Actually, we were just gonna, if we can go back to the previous slide, we're just gonna take a pause here to address a couple of more questions. So the first question that we have is around the financial aid system. So what's going on with the financial aid system? Will it be fixed for this season? We can't get our federal work study students in time, let alone students regarding aid package mix-ups.
Yeah, I mean, we are doing everything possible to ensure that it is getting fixed for this session. You know, as I had mentioned, and as Michelle said, these systems are very complex, and the Rutgers data is not the cleanest as it should be. And so we run into a lot of challenges as we're doing our implementation. What we've also found was that in our old system, there was a lot of manual entry, manual processes involved. And so we're, you know, in an effort to become more compliant and get away from that, we're finding things that we never knew existed. And so, you know, as we come across them, we correct them and we move forward. So as I had mentioned, our first year was really hard. Last year was hard, but we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. And I have to give a lot of credit to the University Enrollment Services, because they're doing a lot of legwork on these issues that keep arising.
Great, thank you. So we will take a few more questions now. Will other departments have access to the institutional Salesforce platform to manage contacts and outcomes. For example, career services engages with employees and alumni, and it would be helpful to see what's occurring across campus with these groups, not to mention the CRM tool for employer development and tracking student and post-grad outcomes.
Well, I can take that one. We are working, as Ellen just went through, our primary focus areas for the enterprise CRM. However, we do realize that there's a lot of other areas, whether it be individual schools or units or larger groups that can leverage and take advantage of this. So whoever asked that question, what I would ask is that please contact me directly. You can send me an email directly. We can talk about your requirements. As Ellen mentioned, we're adding schools and units along the way for specific needs. We just need to understand your requirements so we can talk about what, when, and how we can help you. But yes, you can contact us directly and we can see if you can leverage the enterprise system that's already there.
Thank you. Oracle has many glitches with financial management. How will the management of this system improve with consolidating with from the HR aspect?
So the alignment that I spoke about between chart of accounts and the HCM will be huge. Moving off of the old PeopleSoft on-premise system will also be a big advantage. We will be much more integrated as we continue to develop the Oracle Cloud system and environment in totality, even including moving to the new student system. As these programs become more closely integrated and intertwined, that will also lead to more effective and efficient financial management. And also a big focus of the Chart of Accounts project is looking at those areas within the Oracle financials that through some optimization and analytics building within the tool, that we can further assist and help you with your financial administration.
Staying on this topic a bit, what resources are going to be provided to the one-stop shops to address the additional work created by the new financial management system? And how is this system, which does not aid correctly, more compliant?
So we are working directly with the one-stop shops. We're also working directly with University Enrollment Services. In addition to looking at resourcing, we're also looking at the business processes, how tickets are handled, how the help desks are managed, who resolves and takes on the questions that come in. So we are working closely with the one-stops to work through all that. We're also providing additional process documentation and playbooks for everyone to better understand how to utilize the system to better serve the students. We're providing more training and documentation for everyone as well. So there are ongoing, as we said, as we move into our second cycle of the new financial aid system and continue to work out the kinks and also optimize the system. The one-stop shops have been working very closely with us in helping how we can help their better service them.
Thank you. So we'll just pivot back to HR payroll for just a moment. On slide 16, what is the scope of phase 2 recruiting? Does it include admissions?
If you're talking about student admissions, no, that is part of the CRM, the SCAR, the journey. Recruiting is staff and faculty recruiting.
Still on phase 2 for HR payroll, it seems that it should be in the lead so as not to configure core HR payroll in a way that doesn't allow for phase 2 decisions that do need to be made. Can you discuss why the phases are ordered in this way?
The ordering of the phases really primarily was driven by the fact that there is a critical path to have payroll functionality delivered by January 25. And those items that are currently listed along with payroll in phase 1 are critical to support payroll. It was there. Yes, there are. We agree there's probably some items in phase 2 and even some other items that would be nice to have when the system initially launches. But we also had to, back to what Michelle was saying earlier, think about the amount of work and what could be delivered in the time frame we have to complete phase 1. So those decisions were made based around the requirements to support payroll.
I think we'll take time for just a couple more questions now and then transition back to the presentation. Will part-time and student employees be considered in the HR payroll transformation project?
Yes.
Will salary reallocations be migrated to the new system? They currently are separate separate from PeopleSoft.
So salary wage reallocations, or what many folks better know as SWRJs. Yes, we are working on that right now. They are on a third-party payroll portal, completely separate from PeopleSoft. We are looking to sunset that portal and take the SWRJs along with everything else that's in that payroll portal and move that all into the new Oracle HCM cloud system. That will be, we're looking to do that potentially as part of phase 1. That was also part of, I mentioned earlier, the research administration work stream we're focusing on. Many SWRJs are research specific, so we need to look at how that impacts project encumbrances and accounting as well. So yes, the SWRJ portal will be shut down, and that will all be moved into the new Oracle platform.
And our last question for now. Based on the experience of the past decade of system implementations, as well as the previous HCM payroll migration before Cornerstone, it seems clear that it's not possible to complete an HR payroll migration successfully before January 1, 2025. What possibilities exist to extend that deadline?
Right now, we really don't have a possibility to extend that deadline for January. Again, that is focused specifically on getting the payroll function. That is what we'll be focused on. So along with that, as we're looking at those other items in phase 1, the items that are specific and absolutely required to support payroll must be there, but we may identify some other things that potentially may be pushed back to phase 2. I also want to be very clear that, when we talk about what's included in phase 1 from launching in January, that does not mean that come January 125, we're walking away from all those items and we're done with that. We will continue to work on these. The business process review and reengineering piece will be ongoing even post that launch. We will continue working with everyone to optimize that. But right now, we've also spoken to several peer institutions, and based on our own experiences, sitting here in May of 2023, we do believe that 18 months to get ready for a payroll implementation will be sufficient. We've already started the work. We have multiple teams working on this, and we have all the partners we need at the table. So again, we believe that this is feasible while challenging. Certainly, we get that, but we right now believe this will be possible without any major hiccups, and we will continue to work with everyone to update you.
All right, thank you. I'll transition back to you to continue the presentation.
Okay, next slide, please. So as we talked about, Mike, Michelle, and Alan and I, as we continue these implementations and projects, we continue to learn from them. We continue to identify things that, we can look to improve upon to make things better. A lot of that work over the last several years has led to multiple improvements, what we believe are improvements from opportunities that arose out of some of these lessons learned. I just want to go through a few of them with you. Within the project management office, we really have bolstered our services out of this office. We have created a new change management office, specifically to handle, the people change, the impact, the user adoption piece of it. We provide more hands-on experience for users earlier in the process as these programs develop, not just waiting for the system to be ready and then doing training at the last minute. We do our best to try to get folks involved and engaged and get hands-on keyboards throughout the process. As I mentioned earlier with the HR and payroll initiative, we will be doing multiple rounds of testing and training and user acceptance throughout that program, not just at the end. We've got improved training programs. We've worked on our train-the-trainer model. When we just released the application program in CRM, for example, 2 years ago, we had a train-the-trainer model because it is very difficult for our office, the PMO, to train all the hundreds and in some cases thousands of users directly. So we identify and work with the units for them to provide us with trainers. We train those folks who then go back and train the users. But on that program, we trained over 250 trainers across the university to help us roll that program out across the university. We've created multiple standardized tools and methodologies that we use to make sure we are delivering consistent services across all of our projects. So folks have clear expectations when they're working on a PMO project, what to expect and the way things are going to look. We've created a new project portfolio management tool and a new platform that enables us to do master planning and scheduling, as well as create project plans and schedules That is in Microsoft Project Online. We have built a direct integration with MS Teams, so we can share that information with all of our stakeholders and get collaborative input and feedback from everyone. So that platform just rolled out about 6 months ago and is being used for all these current projects. It also enables us to provide better reporting for management and senior leadership. We can do dashboards, we can do health checks, we can do a better job of risk and issue management and identification. So that platform has now been rolled out. And we also opened a brand new training facility here in Piscataway on Nicebridge Road, where we can bring folks in to actually get hands-on with a trainer in the room to do system training, to do system testing, to do updated training. So that's downstairs here at Nicebridge Road, and we'll be using that to bring folks in here that need hands-on training for these systems as well. Next box, please. As part of our new change management office, we've also built an enhanced program governance model. It allows us, Michelle had talked earlier about how many times we hear from units and campuses about being more involved. That's not just involved in the project, that's being involved in the decisions that are made on those projects. So our new governance model allows us to provide more inclusiveness around decision-making. I mentioned the governance committees before. Every project that we run has an advisory council, a steering committee, and an executive committee. Decisions that are made on those projects are run through all three of those committees. So we are hearing from stakeholders and impacted users from across the university on all decisions. That is part of our governance model. It also allows us to have greater and increased collaboration across all units, from core teams and project teams to those governance committees. And as we also mentioned earlier on these larger projects, actively doing it right now for HR payroll initiative, we work with leadership teams across the university and ask them to identify for us the impacted people within their respective areas and to help us get them engaged and involved in the programs. We also solicit feedback and input from broader stakeholder groups. We continue to expand these groups out, especially when we're talking about these major large initiatives that really are far-reaching across the university and impact truly thousands of users and staff members and faculty members and students across the university. We solicit feedback and get input through a multiple way of collaboration. MS Teams is a key collaboration platform for us, where we can grant people access to view documents, to get updates, to see all the latest information, to provide direct input that comes right into the project team to make sure that we're getting it. And we take all that input, we take all that feedback, and we evaluate that and assess that against all the future decisions that will be made. And again, once those decision recommendations are established, they are run through the full governance body to make sure that we are not making any siloed decisions, and we are always doing what is best for Rutgers. Next box, please. And then we've also expanded our communications through working closely with Stephanie and her team and the University Finance Administration Communications Group. We've got multiple program and project websites already stood up. You'll see some of those in an appendix here that can take you right to several of our project websites. Our Cornerstone website has been updated and modified and cleaned up for what it used to be. We are releasing newsletters. We will do these open forums. We will also have newsletters come out on a regular basis to the entire university. And we were also on several of these newer projects, HR payroll specifically. We have a new website under development for that we expect to roll out next month as well. So between websites, open forums, and our collaboration tools, we are expanding our communications to make sure information is out there, make sure we are keeping folks aware and updated throughout the process of every one of these projects. And I will turn it back over to Mike Gower.
So thanks to my colleagues today, and thanks to all of you in the audience. We are going to have some more time for questions in a minute, but I just want to reiterate what has been said throughout here and what to expect going forward. Collaboration, communication, engagement. Very much learned from experiences as we go into the HR payroll, which affects everyone, that these three elements are critical to what we do, critical to success. This will be the fourth payroll system that I've been involved with in terms of implementation, and it is absolutely essential that you get the payroll correct. The questions about why are we prioritizing things in a certain way have to do with the need to get the payroll correct and take all the steps necessary for that to be the absolute goal. We're going to continue with university-wide and as well as focused Cornerstone newsletters and forums like this one, so that there's a regular opportunity for you to learn from us what is going on and where you might need to raise questions or intersect with us. Along with that, regular website updates. We'll have in a moment the links to all the appropriate websites, and we'll be promoting those significantly. And then the change management, it depends on change agents, and networking the folks throughout the university are going to be critical to both providing the appropriate input for us to get assumptions correct, and also to help with the change as it goes along. Change is inevitable, and change is completely disruptive, but we can moderate the disruption, and we can work together to try to make it minimal, but we can't avoid it. And I think that's a critical piece to remember. Next, please. So now we're going to reopen for any remaining questions, Stephanie, or ones if you'd like to put things, the Q&A is still open.
Great. So we do have several questions. The first question is the new payroll system going to be on Oracle?
Yes, it will.
Yes.
And when the new payroll system is implemented, will there be testing or at least running the systems at the same time? I was here during the payroll transition to PeopleSoft, where I had to go to payroll myself to pick up 60 checks for part-time workers that were not paid because PeopleSoft couldn't handle the volume and it crashed. So extensive testing would help with that.
So Mike, I can take that one. We do have multiple parallel testing cycles built into the program. The payroll is expected to launch in January of 2025. We will actually start parallel testing of payroll cycles 6 months prior to that.
And let me just double down on that. The testing, the parallel testing of payrolls is critical here. Again, this is from experience in prior institutions where I was involved in this. And when I talk about testing, I mean testing each individual's gross to net pay down to a very, very small tolerance. That is part of just a given in this process. And we have to do it multiple times over multiple payrolls because things are different as from one payroll to the next. So we are pushing as hard as we can to get the work done so that we can get to testing as soon as possible, and certainly have that 6-month period to work on those questions.
Thank you. With the entry into Common App, will high schools now submit transcripts and school reports instead of self-reporting, or will they do letters?
Self-reporting academic records will continue to be as they are today. So even after a potential student submits an application through Common App, they will still need to go into our Rutgers system to do their SRAR.
And can you help us understand why we use Salesforce for admissions and then transition to Common App? Why didn't we use Common App directly 2 years ago?
Well, fundamentally, Common App is a gateway to the university. It doesn't, in fact, do the admissions processing. It feeds into admissions processing. So we will actually have Common App feed directly into the Salesforce application. Common App by itself can't do that for us. The decision to come on to Common App was a result of a number of considerations of leadership, actually beyond the four of us, and the timing of it is such that this fall was the earliest that we could come onto it.
Thank you. Can one of our goals with the new travel system be that no employee should have to spend money out of pocket for work-related expenses? For frontline staff, this is a financial burden that negatively enhances inequities. We can't afford to pay for hotel and travel, even if we can get reimbursed in 2 weeks.
I'll take that. Yes. One of the things that when I got here almost 10 years ago that really, really bothered me was the degree to which university travel was done on employee cards or employee on your own and requiring reimbursement. So many of the steps that we've taken along the way have tried to address that. The first thing was to get reimbursements where they were still happening turned around much quicker. And I think we certainly accomplished that. There are occasional glitches there, but we certainly accomplished that. The online booking tool and the relationship with direct travel precludes the individual from having to use your own credit card to charge for flights. That is done directly through that system and avoids that completely. And then finally, the introduction of travel cards, which we have been doing on a reasonable basis since coming out of COVID, will continue. And certainly that is mechanism by which we can get those travel expenses off of individuals' own cards, if you will. So that will continue. This system will make it a lot easier to mix the two, if you will, the information from these travel cards along with the expense management information that we do need to capture as just part of doing business.
Just a follow-up question, Mike, to clarify, will the new expense management system eliminate the need to process reimbursements?
No, not completely. There will still be circumstances where that is necessary, but it will be integrated into that system, the process of the reimbursement. So we only have to go through one time. But back to what I was saying, we're going to try to minimize the circumstances, at least for regular travelers, where it's necessary to have a reimbursement of some sort.
And can you talk a bit more about travel cards? Will each person have a travel card?
It depends on the needs. So I can't say it would be each individual. In order to walk before we run, we have been working on these in what is an increasingly larger and larger pilot program. But stay tuned for that. We'll be, as we get the travel system up and running, stay tuned for more information about the travel cards.
Thank you. So we're going to transition a bit to change management. Will users on the ground be part of stakeholder groups? For example, beyond central, chancellor-led units and school-based payroll, budget, and HR folks. There also are those of us outside of those groups who have to use the systems to submit information at the start of the process, like staff submitting for travel reimbursement after returning from a conference.
So yes, but we rely on our partners and constituents and colleagues that we work with across leadership across the university to identify those folks. I will say for any of these projects, for anyone on this call or anyone else at this university, if you're hearing about a project or see about a project that you feel you or your group has not been contacted about or been engaged with, and you feel you need to be, please contact my office directly, and we will make sure you get engaged in the project.
We currently have a Kronos system. Will the new payroll system impact Kronos?
Only in that it'll be integrated differently on the back end, integrated to a new system. Our goal right now for timekeeping is that we are looking at implementing a hybrid model when we go live initially, meaning that those folks that are currently on Kronos That Chronos system will remain. It will just be integrated with the new system. We will also be implementing as a pilot the timekeeping system within Oracle. Several years down the road, that may be another decision point we come back to, but right now, we are not intending on getting rid of Chronos.
Do we expect to be on Oracle long-term? And have we considered other ERPs such as Workday? Many Big Ten schools have gone to Workday and would like to hear your thoughts if this was ever considered or something that may be considered in the future.
I'll take that. So we made the decision to go into the Oracle Cloud in 2014. We had been a longtime Oracle customer, and we did at that time a side-by-side comparison, actually an RFP process that included Workday at that time. Now that was almost a generation ago as systems go, but these are long-term decisions. It is not a trivial matter to change them, and I also am very, very familiar with the if you will, even competition between Oracle and Workday out in the higher education area. And it is for everyone that likes Workday, there's somebody who likes Oracle. For everyone who hates Workday, there's someone who hates Oracle. They are the key players in the market. But because this is not an on-premise, not a customized system, not something that you regularly have to change out, these are long-term choices. And we are going to be with Oracle for the foreseeable future. That was the right decision for us in 2014. I consider it, and I, as I said, pretty well versed in what goes on in the marketplace in higher ed, especially in the administrative side, that it is a good decision for Rutgers. And that's speaking someone who is, as I said, also very familiar with the Big Ten implementations.
Thank you. I think we have time for another question. Having gone through student financial planning for the financial system, is there a path better carved for SRDB migration to Oracle, and what is the timeline? And can you explain what SRDB is?
I can take that one. So SRDB is the legacy Rutgers student system. Banner is the RBHS student system. And yes, if you go back to Michelle's timeline, the goal, and again, things change based on what's happening, but the goal is to begin looking at the business processes, all the student business processes across all the schools and units, January 24. So, we're expecting to stabilize the student financial planning by then, and then hop on to the next step.
Thank you. So we have a few questions remaining, but we're also approaching the end of the time for the meeting. So we will provide the responses to the remaining questions when we send the follow-up communications. So we can advance to the next slide, and John or Mike.
So I'll take this one real quick and then turn back to Mike. So we mentioned earlier that, in terms of communications and updates, we are working to roll some websites out. So on this slide, you will all get copies of this. These are links in here, which will take you directly to some of our websites. So here you have our Cornerstone website, which is the program master website where you can get updates on all the projects. And then there are specific websites already live for chart of accounts, for the student experience improvement initiative, as well as for our CRM Scarlet Journey program. And as I mentioned, we are in development right now for an HR payroll transformation website that we expect to be added sometime next month. As websites continue to get added and different ways continue to be rolled out for you to get information, Stephanie's team will continue to communicate those out. But here are for the websites that have already been developed and are out there now. Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, John. On behalf of myself and my colleagues, I want to thank you all for participating today. As I mentioned, this is the first of a series of Cornerstone Forums going forward. And I look forward to opportunities to meet with you all and present to you all again in the near future. I want to just reiterate that we need to collaborate with you. We need to communicate with you. We need to engage with you. We need to partner with you in order to make these coming projects successful. They will, even as we call them and get them to success, they will not be easy. That is just not possible to have the change that we need to have that is easy. But what we can do is make it manageable and make the discomfort, if you will, as short-lived as possible. And that is our goal. But these coming projects are very important. And we will be putting a lot of time and energy and resources into getting them done well. So with that, again, thanks for participating today. And thank for Stephanie for managing this, and the folks in UFA, John, Michelle, and Ellen for participating with me today. Thanks.